What's up everybody, hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm your host Phil, and today's video, I'm super excited to showcase to you the Sonulab STOMPSTATIon Pro. Let's roll the intro clip and then check out what this brand new NAM capable device is capable of doing. Thank you everybody for tuning in today's video, I highly appreciate it. We're gonna check out today the Sonulab STOMPSTATIon Pro. Really cool, handy device which is capable of loading NAM models without any type of conversion. NAM stands for Neural Amp Modeler and is a technology which is open source, 100% free to use in plugin format, for example, where you can create profiles or tone models or captures of your amp rig's tone, and you can then convert them into NAM files, load them into the plugin, and then you're going to have exactly the same tone playing through that plugin than you would have like playing through the amp rig. Devices like this allow for transferring those NAM models into a hardware format where they then can be used on pedal boards. So that means you can build a small form factor pedal board with one of these over here being used as the main amplifier, and then you can add whatever effects you want to have on that one, and from there onward you can go to either front of house or to a power amp powering up a cabinet. Then you're going to have basically the tone of your amp rig loaded into one of these units. So really cool stuff. What makes the Sonulab STOMPSTATIon Pro so special is that there's no fidelity loss, no conversion done on the NAM models. What that means is we have a lot of different devices which are NAM capable, like the GP5 from Veiltone, for example. When you load a NAM model into this, it's converted into a format which is appropriate for the CPU, because NAM models are quite CPU taxing. This internal conversion in most cases lead to some sort of a signal fidelity loss, and in case of the GP5, for example, to such a loss that I would not consider using this at all. I personally think that on the NAM front, this unfortunately fails. Although this is a pretty cool unit in itself, not for NAM loading so far. This is exactly where the Sonulab STOMPSTATIon Pro kicks in. It has absolutely no conversion whatsoever. It loads the NAM models in a native form, meaning untouched and no fidelity loss. So far, there are only a few units on the market which actually do this conversionless native NAM quality. One of them is the Dimehead NAM Player, which I got over here. You have seen this quite on a few videos already if you follow my channel. If you do so, thank you a lot. And yeah, today the question is, can the Sonulab STOMPSTATIon Pro dethrone the NAM Player? Because I'm a huge fan of this one, but I'm really excited for this as well. So let's dig right into it. I now got everything set up. The Sonulab STOMPSTATIon is somewhat in focus, so let's go ahead and explore some of the default presets. We're going to start with the first one, which is called 80s Rock Live Playing. Let's explore how this device functions. I pulled it a little bit closer to the camera so that we have it more in focus and we can see better what's going on. So we got currently the preset 4A. 4 indicates the bank in which we are, and A, B, or C indicates which preset we're on. And we can now use these switches to flick back and forth between them. One thing to note is that it's a change on release type of thing. So I'm pressing, releasing, then it changes. So hopefully you can see that. It's not, I mean, of course, if I tap, then it gets quite instantly changed. Some people prefer this type of thing because you then want to kind of place your foot down, wait a little bit, and then go into the preset maybe to the exact same spot. I rather am a change by press type of guy, and the NAM player does that, so I like that a little bit more. However, it does make sense that it's this way because if you press 2 at once, then you change the preset and you can now choose in which, like preset you want to go from the bank. So I go a bank up and then I have the choice between A and B and C. I choose A and then I can go. This allows you to really go between the banks and the presets. I mean, it's still a little bit of a tap dance thing to choose. If you want to kind of mitigate that, then you will have to use some MIDI controller in order to do the program changes for you, but that's how it works. Above that, we have 4 encoder knobs, which are, like changing these different things over here. So you got like low, mid, treble, and gain. These are now assigned to F1 to F4. And then you got the, I would say, global parametric knob. So let's try out a little bit. You can then see, for example, gain is now totally up. I want to change that down. And here you can actually adjust to your liking. Very similar to what the Neural Amp Modeler plugin is allowing you to do. I would assume that since this is conversionless, that the Neural Amp Modeler core is just simply programmed into this unit, and thus the settings which you do over here are exactly like on the vanilla plugin. So on treble, mid, and low, you got the same thing going on. You got quite big jumps, so one slight knob twist is 0.6 dB. I would love to have that a little bit finer because it really bugs me, for example, in this case, that you cannot get to 0 over here. No matter what you're doing, you're either at 0.2 or 0.4. So that's a little bit annoying over there. However, in the app, of course, you can do that. And we're going to explore that in a moment. So all of these controls are over here. Now, this over here is your main parametric knob. And once you press this, you can see the entire effects stack going on. And here you can actually dive into the menu and really change things. For example, when you go over here to the gate block and you press that, you got all of these different controls which you can set up. And that kind of goes for all of the different stuff. On the amp block, we can set up the model which we want. So that's our NAM model. We can set it off. We can turn the gain, the volume, the EQ as we had set it before with the F1 to F4 buttons. Really cool stuff. IR, we can then set like even a stereo IR type of thing where we can set up a lot of different pan rules and so on and so forth. And over here, of course, obviously we can activate, deactivate, choose the IR which we want to set up. Very, very powerful thing overall. We're not going to explore right now everything in there. I just want to kind of showcase what's going on. And when you are on the respective block over here, you can always see what the F1 to F4 button would be changing. So in this case, when we're going to the modulation block, let's just turn this on and then go back. So then you could use the F1 to change the mode. You can see now that I can change between chorus, flanger, and phaser. And over here, I can change the depth and the dry, wet, and so on and so forth. So all of these things are working very nicely, giving you full control. When you go over here, back to this menu, and you go there so that you are highlighting the name of the preset. Yeah? So like so, You can set now the preset, what name it is, edit it, set the level, the volume, and if you press now, you are going into the master settings. And here you can set the global tempo for the delays and for all of the other stuff, the overall volume, the in2 volume, and preset specific stuff like the preset color, which you can then also change to your liking. So you got a lot of different stuff which you can access through these specific menus. It is a little bit complicated to wrap your head around at first, but once you get through on this one, then it does make total sense. So with that out of the way, let's move over to the VoidX app, because I think that this is the most special thing about the Sonulab STOMPSTATIon Pro. So one real special thing about the Sonulab STOMPSTATIon Pro is the diversity when it comes to connectivity. Now, you can control this not only on the unit itself, but actually also from a PC, from a Mac, or even your Android smartphone. In order to do so, you have to download the VoidX app. So now it's gonna find it via Bluetooth over here. I can click on the STOMPSTATIon Pro to interconnect the two with each other. And there we go. Now you can see all of the different settings which we got over here. Very similar to what we've seen on the device before. However, in a much nicer form factor and way to set up the things. Yeah, this works absolutely fantastic. You can see that you have all of your signal chain going on over here. You got the different settings which you can set up, like the newly introduced EQ, which is absolutely fantastic. I love this so much. And going to the master section, you have a lot of different control over the preset color. Yeah, I mean, you cannot see it because it's on a second camera. However, the preset is changing over here. Really cool stuff. Preset tempo and so on and so forth. Under the settings, you can activate the tuner, use the input gain to adjust for your presets, or set up, you know, like for example, a ground lift, which I would not use in this particular case, because in this particular case, it's, you know, like creating some nasty hum over here, but it might be exactly what you need at the venue. So it's good that there is this option over there, and you can set the encoder mode to work clockwise instead of counterclockwise. A lot of different stuff which you can set up over here, and it's super nice that we have this in this nice app over here, which by the way also works via phone. All right, I now set up STOMPSTATIon Pro so that it basically has a clean, empty preset going on. Nothing is really loaded in here. And let's explore now the different possibilities which we have. So in the master section, first and foremost, we can set up the volume of the input 1 and 2. We can set the global tempo, all of those different things. You can see when I move stuff around that the small circle is coming up. And if you click on it, you can set it back to the default value and thus resetting that particular setting. As you can see, everything is fairly standard setup. And on the input, I also have no digital gain going on because I want to have full control on that one in the amp block. So when it comes to the tuner works quite nicely. Always a nice handy feature to have a tuner, which works quite well in there. You can set the hertz number as well. On this section over here on the very right, which is a little bit covered by the pedal, you have all the device connectivity information. So what device do you have, what security have you set up, so you can actually password protect this device, which is cool. Yeah, nothing special. This is basically a DI setup right now. So what comes in goes also out in an unaltered way. When it comes to the amplifier, then I have preloaded this with a Null NAM. So it basically does nothing except for a little bit of a volume drop. However, tonally, this is set to null. And we have all of these different NAM models in here. Some which are already loaded in by default, and some which I then actively loaded in the aftermath. So when you want to load in your own NAM file, you go to this over here, you open the list, then you go to the drop down over here, you select your respective NAM model. Let's go over here with Tom Clean, and then you would load this in. Let me do that. So now that it's done over here, you can see that the Tom EVH 5150 clean has been loaded in. Now, the thing is, if you want to actually use this, you don't click on this one, because this will only allow you to rename it. You got to go out of this, and then in this list, you can choose the Tom EVH 5150 clean profile over here. So that's a little bit of a, you know, like, you got to know your way in how to operate on this program over here, but it's very intuitive once you get into it. So let's listen to what it sounds like. You can now hear it's a little bit scratchy. The first thing is, when I do my particular captures in my setup over here, I find that, you know, taking out 6.5 dBs of gain definitely helps out, but it's still a little bit scratchy. The reason for that is that we do not have an impulse response set up over here. So that's our cabinet emulation, and that's what we're gonna set up next over here. I'm just gonna activate this, and you can see that this is set to mono over here with the Maresha green sack right there already activated. Completely different game. I'm gonna go ahead over here and load one impulse response from Celestion, which I already preloaded onto this device. Kind of my favorite IR at the moment. Very nice stuff going on over here. And if I want to set up the stereo, I can do that as well. Yeah, sounds very, very, very different. You're gonna perhaps hear them absolutely summed up, and it's gonna sound horrible on your end. Sorry for that. So I'm gonna just deactivate this, but know that you have all of these different functionalities where you can pan them back and forth. You can mix and blend them. You can pan them right out. That's gonna be important once we're gonna have like a dual capability where one path is running with an IR to the front of house and one is running without into a power amp, because this is capable of doing that as well. And that's the second thing which I'm always after when it comes to NAM capable devices. And this is the core reason why I was so excited for this over here above the Tonix. Tonix is not capable of doing that type of deal. NAM Player is. Sonulab STOMPSTATIon is also capable, so that's a huge plus in my personal opinion. All right, I now grabbed myself a different NAM model, the AC10 Fat Jangle from Dan Lombardi, one of my absolute favorite NAM models. I'm gonna try to find a link on Tone 3000 and put it down below in the description. This one is absolutely spectacular for that crunchy type of bluesy stuff. So we're going to use that as the basis to move forward. I'm going to make it a little bit quieter, and we're going to add some delay over here. You have a ton of options in the delay and reverb section over here. You can firstly set this to an unlocked state, so you can set up in milliseconds. That's what I usually do. Or you can set this locked to the preset or the global setting. And when you set it to the global setting or the preset, you got the time divisions over here, which then refer to the master section where you got the preset tempo or the global tempo. I personally, however, go most of the time with unlocked and then set it to my liking. Yeah, let's just try out how this sounds. So that's fine. Over here on tone and character, you can set up some different things. I like to high cut that dramatically, also give it a little bit of a low cut so that it does not conflict too much with the original signal. Nice. Now we're going to go to the reverb. Very similar thing over here. Yeah, I like that. I like that more, but with less dry wet, a little bit less decay, and way more high damp. So I really wanted to sound like cavernous, far away, that type of thing. So really cool stuff. Now we can go ahead to the mod section add a little bit of a chorus over here. Really powerful modulation, a little bit too strong currently for my taste, but you have so much stuff. I would have to explore way more in getting something done over here. EQ, as the name says, you have like a graphic EQ, which is absolutely fantastic that you get this. But what I really am excited about is the low cut and the high cut with the slope setting. When it comes to low cuts, I really like to have like a sharp low cut. We're going to listen to this when I'm setting up a high gain over here. And then I want to have like a very hard slope going on, kind of like a brick wall setting where you, after that frequency which I set up, nothing is there. On the high pass, I really like the opposite. I like when it's like a very gradual degradation of the frequency. I'm going to check this out. This is going to become apparent when doing high gain stuff over here. What else do we have? We have a drive setup where we have a clone, the green box, all of those different things, and then you can set up the respective gain. Let's try this out over here. So this is the original sound which I got. Now let's go ahead with a clone. Let's go with the green box. So really strong, powerful drive effects, which you can go with over here. Modulation is very similar to what we had in the post effect section. Compression, I mean, let's try it out. I mean, oh, you can already hear a little bit the hiss going up. A lot of different options, which are unfortunately too much to now walk through. Let's go ahead with the expression because this is very interesting. You can set up a control pedal over here, like an expression control. And then you can set up the wah over here to work with the position together. But this also gives you nice possibilities to set up the position like so, and then play something like... I cannot really play that song, I just improvised a little bit, so bear with me on that one. Last but not least, we got the gate over here, and that is something which is important for me. But before I do that, I'm going to turn off the drive, turn off the EQ, the delay, and the reverb. IR is going to stay the way it is. Let's go ahead with that over here. So let's take away the high cut and the low cut, and let's set this to 6.5 dBs and the rest to their default value, because I want to go with my super high gain setup where I got the EVH. You can already hear it. So this is the EVH 5150 boosted by the King in Yellow, a NAM profile of that. Now this already sounds great, however, I do need a gate for that one, and this is where the gate comes in, and very in handy. So, threshold obviously determines when I'm going to cross the threshold and the noise is going away. So, even on 100 dB, that's quite nice. We don't get a lot of noise going on, so that's cool. But let's set it a little bit. Let's set it a little bit higher so that I'm a little bit more on the safer side. Somewhere around -75 is my sweet spot over here. When it comes to attack, I like to keep it very, very, very aggressive and quick. Let's go with something around 2 milliseconds. On the release, that's a little bit of a tricky thing. You can set it wide, but then you're going to have a little bit of that, like that clamp down. You're gonna realize a little bit of that. So I'm gonna set it right now to the smallest thing which I can set, release to 20 milliseconds. Hysteresis, that's the interesting part. So once you break through the threshold, do all of your stuff, and then fall back, I don't want to have the threshold hard set to -75. I want to have to set the threshold for going back a lot lower. That allows for that tight rhythmic percussion thing, because once I clamp it down with my playing, I can quickly get under -95 dBs. And if I'm doing like a lead, I have a lot of control at keeping that above the hysteresis. So I'm just going to showcase you what's going on over here. So we got like a tight clamp down on chugga chugga things. So you can hear a very quick attack. I'm gonna even set it to 1 millisecond. That's also a nice test. When you do the palm muted chugs, they have to live out a little bit, but then get cut off. The next test for how good a gate is to, just play a little bit leads and hold the note and see how the sustain decays. You can now fine-tune your gate so that the lead is being held as long as you want it to be held. So let's go a little bit higher with the release. And there you have it. Really great working gate, especially for that tight metal stuff, but without sacrificing on the leads. But to be very honest, if you are doing leads, you might go to another preset. You can set it up completely differently. So all of these things work wonders when it comes to setting this up for such a particular, use case in regards of gates. I personally think that on the Dimehead NAM Player, the gate works a little bit more intuitively, but this is very good, well enough for what I'm doing, and miles ahead of the incredibly shitty gate, which is in the Tonex. So let's go ahead to the EQ section over here, because I said I was so impressed and so excited for this feature over here. Just gonna activate it. I'm not all interested in this over here, what's going on. I mean, it's really nice to have. You can use this for nice solo boosts over here. You can set the EQ differently in very, very nuanced ways. So that is pretty cool in itself. I am way more interested in these two or these four settings over here, low cut and high cut. Now, of course, normally I would just go ahead with the low cut and set it somewhere around over here, and set high cut somewhere around 9,000 or so. However, we have these slope options where we can set the specific slope. So that means I can set the low cut to really clamp down very quickly after I'm getting below this low cut frequency over here. And the nice thing is that the high slope is allowing for 6 dB per octave, which is a very, very smooth degradation in frequency. And on this one, I'm going to set it to 12,000 or so. And yeah, let's listen to what we get. Let's check out the different slopes over here. So if I turn it off, so this is works really well. Let's do the same, yeah, on the low cut over here. So let's push the low cut to its very extremes. Really powerful stuff over here on the EQ section. I like it a lot. Let's listen to how it sounds with and without. And before, I always did it in the EQ section, sorry, in the IR section over here. So I set it up somewhere around this over here. I mean, it works also fantastically, so there's nothing to complain about, but having that additional tweakability in the EQ section is what makes this like a really, really powerful, complete unit. Let's walk through the last segment before we are closing up this video over here, and for that, I want to kind of go back to the Dimehead NAM Player. The thing which really got me excited for the NAM Player back then was that you can set up one output which has an impulse response loaded in there, so the entire signal chain is going out of the one input, and the other output respectively is going out without the impulse response. That allows you to drive what I call dual setups. One which goes with the impulse response to the front of house so that you always have the same sound for the audience every single night, and one which you can then use into a power amp and into a cabinet to give you a little bit of that, you know, like original guitar player's rig feeling and sound. Now let me just showcase what I got going on over here. The Sonulab STOMPSTATIon Pro can also do that and is currently going with output 1 to the interface, and with output 2 it's going straight into the Harley Benton GPA 100, which then in turn goes into this cabinet over here, which is mic'd up with a T-Bone MB75. Now when I just play like so, then you are actually hearing only the output 1, which goes into the audio interface. And when I set everything up in this fashion and move over so that it's actually going now into the output 2, let me make that a little bit louder. That's going to sound quite strange to you, perhaps, a little bit muffled. The reason for that is we are now running the mono mode, so meaning on both outputs we have the same thing going out, and that runs the NAM model with the impulse response into the power amp, which goes into the cabinet, into the microphone. So you're having this cabinet microphone combination twice in the signal chain, and that's muffling things down. However, we can circumvent it when we are going over here to the stereo IR setting, and over here we can set up something which is called a Null-IR. A Null-IR is basically an IR with no filtering whatsoever. It just passes through all of the information, and that will give you on output 2, because that's set up panning wise respectively, no filtering at all through the IR block, meaning only the signal from the NAM model will get through to the Harley Benton GPA and respectively into the cabinet. So hear what that sounds like. That already sounds greatly different than this over here. Although, of course, this is now way louder currently. That's something which we're gonna fix and set up over here. So now we can go ahead with the stereo IR setting and set the level to what we need. So now we can really flick back and forth in my reprocession over here between output 1, which goes to front of house basically. And then respectively output 2, which would then be basically this cabinet loaded over here. Let's go over to my final thoughts and conclusion on the Sonulab STOMPSTATION. I truly believe that this is a fantastic unit. It does what it set out to do. NAM capabilities, conversionless, and with a dual IR setup over here, and a lot of different bells and whistles. This is truly spectacular, this unit. I am really a huge fan of this one over here, and I'm truly excited about the future development of this one. It already had gotten some firmware upgrades which make this a lot more useful, like the Bluetooth connectivity overall has really improved, and dual inputs and dual outputs. That is a very promising thing for future development. There's nothing official yet from Sonulab's side, but I could easily imagine that at some point in time you get stereo dual NAM setups, and that would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, what I really like about this product is that it really does what it's set to do, because that's giving a little bit more competition in the field of, you know, like local hardware NAM players. That is something which we really need in this community in order to push the envelope further and further and make this more common. So really, really great job to the people at Sonulab. This is currently in a pre-sale for $439, which is a absolutely fantastic price for what you're getting over here, considering that the competition, the NAM Player by Dimehead, costs around about 570 euros over here in Germany. This is a bargain. So really cool stuff. After the pre-sale ends, they're going to be very similarly priced, but still then I do believe that both units have their pros and cons to it, so that both of them are a very viable option. For whatever you choose, you're going to get what your money is worth, and it just depends on small factors which one is the one which you like more. More on that eventually in a future video. I'm thinking about doing kind of a shootout. What I can say so far is this is a great unit. I cannot complain. and you should not either, and get this for your pedal board. I'm going to put a link in the description down below where you can buy this. Thank you so much to Sonulab for sending this over and allowing me to keep this. And thank you to everybody of you watching these type of videos. Let me know what you want to see, and thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.